My fourth and final contemporary issue is drug use within sport. So, there are lots of organisations that have been created to provide guidelines and rules surrounding the use of drugs to help make sure that everyone competing has a fair chance. They monitor sports to make sure everything is safe and legal so that there is no harm done to the athletes or to the sport. So WADA stands for the World Anti-Doping Agency. It conducts scientific research and educates people to prevent doping in sports. As well as this, it also monitors the World Anti-Doping Code. They have been trying to prevent doping in sport since 1999. The IOC, so that's the International Olympic Committee, that will work alongside companies such as the World Anti-Doping Agency to prevent the use of illegal drug use within sports. The Olympics is the highest level of competitions for most of the sports, and even if it's not the greatest competition in your sport, so such as tennis, winning Wimbledon would be a greater achievement than winning at the Olympics. It still has a high level of competition with a massive audience. This means its rules and regulations and prevention of drug usage has to be extremely good. So the IOC uses the World Anti-Doping Agency's rules and makes their anti-doping policies mandatory in all the Olympics. Lastly, the national governing bodies, which work within sports to create a safe environment for the athletes and participants. This organisation must maintain a high level of participation within their sports so they'll have to prevent the use of drug use. However, unlike the other organisations, they won't ban any athletes if they have been caught, meaning they are able to continue to compete. The athletes can continue to play as the sport needs high levels of participation for it to thrive. So in women's football, and in football in general, there haven't been many drug usage incidents as in other sports. However, in 2012, Hope Solo, who was the USA females national goalkeeper, failed her drugs test. She was found to have canaronin in her system. This drug is a diuretic, meaning it helps with weight loss. This could potentially aid her when she's diving for the ball, as she'll be more agile. This drug is in the USA Anti-Doping Agency's banned drug list. However, she explained that the substance they found was from her prescribed medication, and therefore she was let off with a warning. As well, in 2010, Everton women beat Arsenal in the FA Cup final. However, whilst everyone was celebrating their victory, player Lindsay Johnson was being drug tested. She states, "I got picked after we won and I knew all the squad, my family and friends were all celebrating, and I was sat there getting drug tested." She had only one photo taken before she was taken away. Drug testing is beneficial to the sports, however the timing of them may not be so good. After a big victory, especially a final, the players will all want to celebrate together as it's a team victory, which didn't happen in this case. As said before, there aren't as many drug using examples in football. However, at big events such as the Olympics, there are drug usage, participation bans, and medals being stripped from the players. Marion Jones, who won 3 gold medals and 2 bronze medals at the 2000 Olympics in track and field, admitted to using steroids. This led to a 2-year ban from all competitions, and she was then stripped of all her titles. The steroids would have increased the level of protein within the cells. This would have increased protein synthesis, helping to build and repair her muscle tissues. This type of drug is normally used by athletes that need strength or power in their sports. In her track and field events, she would have needed power to get out of the blocks quickly to gain an advantage over her opponents. So there are different types of drugs. You have stimulants, which could be in the form of caffeine or amphetamines. So these will increase your reaction times. They're also known as speed drugs, so they speed up You have drugs that will build muscles. These are like the steroids. You have relaxants. So these are beta blockers. So they'll slow your heart rate down. So these will be good for fine motion sports that require fine motions. So dart players. It could also be used for footballers just before they take a penalty, as they can then concentrate on scoring the goal. You have drugs that will mask pain. So these are your narcotics. You have ways to increase your O2 transportation. So this is your blood doping or even taking EPO. You have drugs that will reduce your weight. So these are your diuretics. And then you also have drugs that will mask other drugs in your system so they won't be detected. And these are known as epitestosterone. So the positives of taking drugs are that it will build your muscle, it can increase your energy levels, increase oxygen transportation. So if you're doing a long distance event, your muscles will be using up lots of oxygen, so increasing transportation will allow you to carry on running or swimming or cycling. It'll allow you to train harder, so if they mask your pain, you can train harder for longer, improving your body so that it can be the best it can be for your competitions. Drugs will also help to reduce your fatigue, so you can train for longer hours. Drugs can also increase your confidence, as well as increasing your motivation. You can also steady your nerves. If you get a bit nervous before events, athletes could take them so that they can just focus on the event. Reasons to take your drugs. So there could be pressure to win. This could either be from your sponsors, there's your coaches, or money. So if it's in a big cup final, so the World Cup final, for example, there's the pressure to win, to earn this money for your team. Some players have the mentality that they're ready to win at all costs, which could mean putting their body on the line, risking it. Players may have a fear of losing. There is that players may have the certain belief that everybody else is doing it, so why shouldn't they? In some cases, players may take it due to their lack of education. So they may know the benefits of drugs, but they may not know the disadvantages and consequences that comes from taking it. So, as said before, consequences to athletes. So this will be their medals stripped, bans. They may also cause damage to their kidneys or their liver. Players can become overly aggressive. So in sports such as rugby, this may not be as much of a big deal, but in a sport such as darts or something, where violence or aggression is not seen at all, this will then cause the players and participants to get banned. It is illegal within sports drug use, so as said, their status will be lost, medals stripped, they'll be banned from the sport for a long period of time. Solutions to prevent drug use in sport. So you have the organisations, so the World Anti-Doping Agencies, that will put out these guidelines. Coaches and previous athletes should be setting a good example to younger generations, future generations, that drug use within sports is banned and has severe consequences. Drug tests should be more prominent, so that players then get the fear that they don't know when their testing is going to be, so it's random, so they'll be less likely to take drugs for fear of showing up positive. More money should be put into the testing and the laboratories that test for these drugs, as new drugs get developed all the time, so more research should be put into be able to detect these drugs within the body. There was a scientist called Dr. Julian Silvestro who was pro-drugs. So he believed that drugs should be used within sports. So his view was that the athlete's health was his primary concern. But he also stated that if drugs do not cause harm to the athletes, then they should be allowed within sports. He reckons that the zero tolerance of drugs is bound to fail, as on average 10 to 15% of athletes are tested, and there are certain drugs, such as EPO or growth drugs, are naturally found within the body, and this could lead to wrongfully accused athletes. So an example of this is Charles Weglius, who was banned then cleared in 2003, as he had his spleen removed, so this increased his red blood cell count. However, when tested and they found this, they then banned him as they thought he'd been taking an illegal drug. If drugs are allowed, then it will increase the health of the athletes, as at the moment most of the drugs are found on the black market and they could pose a threat to the athlete's health. Whereas if they are allowed, then these drugs can be developed within laboratories in safe conditions and environments, and the athlete will know exactly what is in the drug and know exactly the benefits that it will have on their body. This will also increase jobs. So for biochemists, the drugs that get developed will help to increase recovery time, so it will allow the body to train harder. The Canadian sprinter Ben Johnson stated that the human body was not designed to run the speeds it is now called upon to run, and steroids were necessary to recover from grueling training and injury. So this states that people are pushing their bodies to the edge, and with these steroids they can just gain that extra little bit. Julian also stated that altitude training and hypoxic air machines are legal within sport, whereas taking EPO is illegal. However, they both do the same thing, and they both have the same benefits, whereas one is illegal and the other two are legal. Whereas other scientists have stated that taking drugs is unfair on the athletes that are performing truthfully and honestly without using drugs to gain an advantage. They are also stating that drugs have a negative effect on the athlete and their body, and could potentially cause risk to their health, and are overall saying that drugs shouldn't be allowed within sport.